my favorite way is to just be involved in the community. When you get confronted with a case, different issues, no matter how well I know the law and the facts, I'm typing in to see recent case updates. Has there been any change to this? Even if it's a slightly different interpretation to a statute that could assist a client in their case, I'm going to read it, but it's because I enjoy it. And that's what kind of keeps you abreast with the cutting edge developments.
Hello there and welcome to the My Future Business Show. It's Rick Nuske. It's great to be back with you. We had a bit of a hiatus. We've had a holiday. It's been really, really great, but it's even better to be back with you hosting this wonderful show. Now, on today's show, I have the pleasure of welcoming Managing Partner at Frank Law Firm, Mr. Thomas Frank. Welcome to the show, Thomas.
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure to have you here. Now, you and I are going to be talking about what it's like to juggle the responsibilities of being a managing partner, husband and father, and we take a deep dive into the different types of law and how the team at Frank Law actually delivers results for their clients. Now, first things first, I always take a bit of time to talk about your background, but including in that is where you're calling in from today.
Oh, I'm calling in from Long Island, New York, so a little bit away from you.
Yes, fantastic, fantastic. Now, has that been home since day dot, or have you moved there?
No, I'm from Queens, New York, which is in New York City, and then I went to law school in Queens as well, and lived in Miami for a period. And then when my wife and I moved back to New York, we settled on Long Island. I'm from Queens, she's from New Jersey, so
Yeah.
Long Island seemed like a good middle ground, and that's where we've ended up. And we've been here since 2019.
So what do you like about the place?
Oh, Long Island's awesome. It's got something for everybody, right? If you're a city kid growing up, I'm 45 minutes, 60 minutes away from New York City,
Beautiful.
and I could get that, piece of my childhood. But there's beaches, there's great schools, there's parks everywhere you go. There's a lot of, towns that have great restaurants and nightlife. So it's got everything that you would want. Um, so that there's nothing to not like, in my opinion.
See, this is the thing about when people here who are uninitiated with New York, they think it's all to do with the skyscrapers, don't they? But it's very much has suburbia and it has beach fronts and it has a whole heap of things. Now, in all of that, Thomas, what do you like to do most? Do you have a bit of a social side to you?
I have a social side to me, but I'm in that stage of my life where when you're operating a business and raising a family, what you like to do is not so much part of the equation, but what you have to do is
Yes.
more part of the equation.
Yep.
My wife and I and my colleagues, we talk about this all the time, where we ask each other, "What's your hobby? Do you have a hobby?" And the answer is always no. I don't have anything that I do that doesn't have some sort of productivity tied to it. So what do I like to do? I like to
If you had the
spend
time.
time with, yeah, if I have, well, what I like to do is I like to spend time with my family. If you said, "Tommy, what's your perfect day?" It would be taking my wife and kids out for lunch, taking them to an event, spending the day with them, and then, hanging with my wife at the end of the day.
Yep. Yep.
That would be my ideal day. I'm not
See,
much of a hobby guy. I'm sure I'll
no.
pick it up when I get a little older.
There's if there's nothing in my world that's more important than my children and my family. You touched on it briefly a second ago about how you're doing it for them rather than spending too much time away from the business at the moment. These are building blocks to a later part of your life. Do you think it's important to have a plan for what you want to achieve and the legacy that you want to leave behind? Do you think that's important?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important. Sometimes the plan can be a little amorphous, and there's times when it's difficult to crystallize it. But the goal is, of course, security and happiness for your wife and your children.
Mm.
And that is different for a lot of people. What's happiness and what's security? So I just figure out what that is in my mind, and I try to work my way backwards. And one of the things is, financial security is a part of security, and you
Yep.
have to work to get that.
Hmm.
But if you're working so much that your kids don't know who you are, you're going to miss the mark.
Yes.
So you have to find that balance. And I find it by working odd hours. So From I don't miss dinner time, I don't miss bath time, I don't miss bedtime.
Yep.
I'm always there to read a book or rough house with the kids before bed, and if
Love
they
it.
have an event at school, I never miss that either.
Yeah.
So dad is always there, he's always physically present, uh, and if that means I wake up at 4 a.m. to work and I work till they wake up, or if it means that I work from 7 p.m. till 2 in the morning, that's what it means. This is the life I chose,
Yep.
and I'm
Yep.
happy to make that trade anytime I have to.
You know what? They grow up so quickly, don't they?
Right.
And I'm
Yeah,
glad that you're allocating that time and giving them that focus, because I think it'll pay back in spades at somewhere along the line, Thomas. So thank you
yeah.
very much for the feedback. I really appreciate it. You talked about when you go out, you like to, have a meal. What's your favorite? You have a favorite food?
I have a favorite food, it's just it's not my doctor's favorite food.
Mine neither.
She's like, "Tommy, you're 36, stop eating pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Please stop." But, I don't know if you're familiar, but New York, I'm sure you know New York City's known for its pizza, but
Yes.
as you get into the sub neighborhoods and the subcultures, your pizza place is people have a lot of loyalty, and if, God forbid you challenge them as to whether or not the pizza is good at that establishment,
Oh, no, no.
it's enough to start a war. So
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah. And I think
so,
that go ahead.
so unfortunately for me, my neighborhood pizza place opened a shop out here in Long Island, not too far from my house,
Uh-oh.
and I pass it every day now. So
What are you going to do? They're following you, Thomas. I think they're after you. Now, now tell me a little bit about life growing up. Can you recall any fond memories? And what's one fond memory that you'd be willing to share with us?
there's so many
So
fond
many.
memories. My
Yeah.
father always used to say, he goes, "I don't know how you did it, but you formed such a great friend group. All my friends growing up were good people. They had the right goals. They were not trying to cause, more than your usual adolescent trouble. They had good parents who cared about them. So it was just a really good, and we all looked out for one another.
Yeah.
And, growing up in the city, it could be rough at times. And you rely on your friend group
Yeah.
to get you through some of those rougher times. I'm trying to think of a particular
Yeah. It's very
story
difficult sometimes,
from
isn't
my
it?
there was one
Here we go.
there was one time, my grandfather was an Italian immigrant. He came
Yep.
from Italy after World War II. Very, very hard-nosed man. He could be warm, but he did not grow up in that time where children had a voice. You were meant to be seen and not heard. So, but he had a soft spot for his grandchildren. So he bought a house in Pennsylvania, which is like a rural area of the United States, right? It's only a couple hours away from New York, and you're basically in the forest.
Yep.
So he bought this house, and we would go there for the whole summer. And my cousins are like my brothers as well because we're all the same age. This is my mother's sister's two sons.
Yep.
So we would spend every day all summer with one another. And I'm the oldest of four boys, and I have an older sister. So there we were like a gang.
Yep.
So we would play baseball, basketball, football. There was a lake. We would go fishing.
Love
But
it.
the boat that we had was like this rickety old rowboat. And we didn't care. We were kids. We would row out
Yeah, it
there
worked.
and we would fish and we would come back and we had a grand old time. We did this nonstop, never got tired of it. One time it's me, my younger brother Brian, and my cousin Danny on the boat, and something happened. The boat started taking on water. We're in the middle of the lake. So I just I look at my cousin and my brother, and I just say, we have to lighten the load. I didn't say what to do. I just said we have to shed some weight. I look over and all I see is the bottom of my brother's shoe because he's already diving out of the
Oh.
water.
Oh.
Dove out, swam to shore. Me and my cousin were laughing so hard we almost sank because we couldn't row. We were laughing so hard.
Oh, that is a
But
great story. Thank you so very much. And this is what I love about talking with people like yourself. You're professionals, but you also have that human side, that human touch. And I think that's really important. That's why I think the My Future Business show is so different. Now, you touched on your father being I guess a man's man. And, as children, we're seen and not heard. And I get that. I absolutely do get that. But in those formative years, he must have had some sort of an impression on you. Who else was around you that had a strong influence on the person that you've become today, do you think?
Well, it's funny. My father and my grandfather are both a similar type of man. Funny
Mm,
enough, my father is, not. I'm not talking about his father. I'm talking about my mother's father.
right.
So my mother's father, my maternal grandfather, and my father were both very much the same way, where excuses were not something they wanted to hear.
Yep. Yep.
You have a problem, you deal with it. That's the end of it. You deal with it as best as you can. Try, you keep your wits about you in that situation. You don't get frantic, you don't get overly emotional. They're both kind of like, well, my grandfather had a bit of a temper, but when he dealt with an issue, he was kind of like this, right? He was not flailing,
Pretty
and
consistent.
he was a World War II veteran. He was a prison of war by the British because he was actually conscripted to fight for Italy. He didn't have a choice in the
Wow.
matter, and
So
he
he's
was a
tough as
prison of war for like,
nails.
what'd you say, Rick?
So he's as tough as nails.
Oh, tough as nails. He was a prisoner of war for 3.5 years, and I would
Wow.
say,
That's
"How
incredible.
was that?" And he would say,
Eh?
"Not bad." Like in his thick accent, "Not bad." And it's like,
Yeah,
"What do
not
you
bad.
mean, not bad? That was probably awful."
Jeez.
But uh, aside from those two men in my life, there's so many others. Of course, my mentor who showed me so much in the law,
Yep.
how to behave, how to do good work, what you should be focusing on. I started working for Mark in 2012.
Mm,
I still call him for advice. He's been out of the law now for 4 years. I still call him when I get in a low point or can't figure a way out of a problem or a case, and just talking to him about it, automatically feel better after the call. Sometimes it's just to know someone else dealt with it, dealt with something
yes.
similar.
Yes.
But aside from those three men, my wife is by far had the
Fantastic.
largest impact on me.
Yeah, well, they hear the deepest, darkest moments of our lives as well as the brightest and sunniest as well, don't they? They get the full kit.
That's for sure. They get the full kit, and she came from a very different background,
Mm,
and she just showed me that everything's possible.
yeah.
I was very narrow focused before I met her. Right, we met in law school, so it wasn't like I was too narrow focused, but what I saw as possible was somewhat limited to what was right in front of me. And Amanda was like, "No, you could be anything. You could be anything you want. You really can. You have the competency to be whatever you want, and look at these examples around you." And when I first met her, it was like the
And
sky opened.
Amanda seems like an amazing person that is the catalyst to lift you up, and I think that's an amazing person that you've found. And you've obviously gone on to have a wonderful family. You're doing amazing things. Again, this is so powerful for me. Thank you for sharing. Now, tell me. I know that you've compromised in terms of a typical daily routine, but do you look after yourself? Is that important for you? What do you do?
It has to be. And I think everyone who's in business trying to start something from scratch, you're putting everything you have into it. You're pouring all of yourself into that endeavor. And sometimes, well, a lot of times, it becomes difficult to differentiate between that effort and yourself and what you need, not what your business needs.
Hmm.
And that's an ongoing battle of figuring that out. And sometimes I do take care of myself,
Yep.
and it's just it's a rolling basis of figuring out what do I need on this given day. So, from a take your vitamins, drink your water, make sure you're getting rest, simple things like that, which you should be doing anyway. That's like the floor, right? It's the foundation of taking care of yourself, making sure the body is and the mind is feeling right.
Mm.
And then there's other things, prioritizing things that are for you and not for business. I told my wife yesterday, it's funny that you brought it up because you mentioned cystic fibrosis before.
Hmm.
I said to my wife, yesterday. I said, I felt good today because I took a break from my day and I stopped and I ordered my medications
Yep.
to make sure I had them, that I didn't cause myself anxiety by waiting to the last minute to do it, that I preempted it and I got everything coordinated because that takes care of me, and not having those things would cause anxiety, which would
Have a
affect my
knock
mental
on.
health.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, but just blocking off that time for yourself, and this is for me right now, and it could be anything, but that's how I try to take care of myself, where it's
That,
understanding you are worth taking care of and you have to devote the time to it. You deserve that. And whatever that is just so long as you do it.
yeah, that's great feedback. Now, let's touch on cystic fibrosis, if you don't mind.
No.
I'd love to hear your story. I think it's a really powerful story. I read it in the write up that you got to a point, and then you found somewhat of a solution to this, which I find incredible. Tell us about the story.
Yeah, so it's a great story.
I love good story.
It's so it's just it has a rough beginning though. So cystic fibrosis is a genetic condition and it impacts the person's lungs, right? It impacts their respiratory and digestive system.
Right,
So from the digestive standpoint, it makes it difficult to absorb calories. So you could eat and eat and eat, and your body just won't retain it without supplemental medication.
right,
For the respiratory part of it, it causes a buildup of mucus in the lungs, which causes it difficult for air to get in and out. So you're going to lead, it's going to cause long-term chronic respiratory issues.
hmm,
So when my parents, it's a genetic condition. So when my parents were born, when I was born, my parents were told, "Hey, listen, he has it because you're both carriers, and his life expectancy is probably 18,"
wow,
which is yeah. And my parents' first child passed away at the age of 5 months. They didn't know what she had. So, and then my sister had it, same issue, and by some miracle, a nurse diagnosed her when cystic fibrosis wasn't really known. It was like
mm,
1983.
yeah,
So then my mother was pregnant with me, they knew to check for it at that point in time. And they said, listen, he's probably not going to make it past 18. And then when I was like 10, like, all right, he's going to make it to 35 or 32 rather. So from the beginning, and like I said before, my father's a little, he'll
black and
tell you
white.
what you, my father will tell you what you need to
Yep,
know,
black and white.
but without without refinery. He'll just
Yes,
say it.
understood.
So
Yep.
he would say, "Listen, you need to take care of yourself, or you're going to go. Like that's what's going to happen. So you need to exercise, you need to run on the treadmill, you need to play sports, and that's what he had me do all the time. Played every sport there was. I was constantly out, so I had great lungs, right? But then law school happens, and you're not going to the gym like you used to, and you're working long hours, and
Very
you're not
busy.
eating right, you're
Yep.
drinking a lot of coffee, like all these things that you're doing that are not great for your, for your respiratory system. So fast forward to like 2019, my wife and I are married. We got married in January. And usually I would go to the hospital every once in a while and they would give me IV antibiotics and that would kind of clear me out. I would
hmm
feel right as rain after that. And then I would do that like twice a year. It was like August 2019. And I told my wife, I said, I don't feel right. I need to go to the hospital. I go to the hospital. I'm there for a week. I come out. I still didn't feel right. And that's never happened before. And now I'm 31 and some change.
Yep.
So I'm like, crap. This
Here
is a
we,
problem.
here we go.
Right now that 32 date is
Uh,
ringing in my
I
head.
bet.
My wife's pregnant. Now I'm having, am I going to be able to chase after my daughter? Like all these really catastrophic thoughts. So one day, it's early September. My birthday, September 30th. So a big client of ours goes, "Hey, Tommy, I want to talk to you about this case." I said, "Oh, great. You want to talk about it over lunch?" And he goes, "No, I want to talk it over a round of golf. Do you
Oh,
play?" And he's like this alpha guy, right? He
yeah,
likes to win. I
yeah.
love this guy. He's hysterical. So I didn't want to say no, I don't play. I said, "Yeah, there's a bear shit in the woods. Yeah, I play. We got to get get ready to get beat. He goes, all right, great. We're playing Friday at the Atlantic in the Hamptons. So beautiful, beautiful golf course. So this is like Monday. Tuesday, I called the golf trainer. I said, listen, I need to play competent golf by Friday. He goes, you got to come in today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And we need hour-long sessions at least. And maybe I'll look you competent for the first swing on the first tee. But after that, you're going to fall apart.
You're on your own.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, fine. And then that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I go to him. Wednesday, I go to Dick's Sporting Goods. I walk into the golf section. I tell the guy, listen, I need to play golf Friday. It's for a client. I've never played golf before, so I don't have anything. And the guy goes, oh my God. And he goes, okay, where are you playing? I go, the Atlantic. He goes, oh my God. Because it's like a very well-known, prestigious course. He goes, who are you playing with? Just friends? I go, no, with a client. He goes, oh my God. He goes, I go, when are you playing? Friday. Oh, no. The guy's having like a heart attack. His name was Rob. He was the nicest guy on the planet. He goes, okay, how much do you want to spend? I go, X amount of dollars. He goes,
Yep.
Perfect. That's fine. Do you like this bag? And he points to like a golf bag on the side. I go, yeah, sure. That one's fine. He goes, good. Go pick out an outfit. I'll meet you at the register. He's just taking clubs, throwing it in the bag. He's grabbing balls. He's grabbing tees. I pick out an outfit. He meets me at the register. The register's stacked 3 feet high.
I bet.
He goes, don't buy a putter. A putter is very peculiar to the person. I have an extra one in my car. I'm going to give it to you.
Oh.
The guy was a gentleman. He goes, text me on Friday. I want to know how you play. Got his number and everything. So we go on Friday. So now it's Friday. My birthday is Monday, the 30th. So we go on Friday, or we go on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing. I get a text from my wife. She says the doctors, we had to do IVF.
All right. Yep.
So she texts me. She goes, the doctor confirmed we're pregnant.
Oh,
right? It's a viable pregnancy. Everything is good.
fantastic.
So I'm like, this
I'm on
is
a
awesome.
streak.
It's the best day ever. I'm playing golf. I'm not making a fool out of myself. So it's going great. And then I get a text from my doctor, who's been my doctor since I'm an infant. And she says, Tommy, the drug came in. Now, for as long as I've had CF, since about 2000, this is 2019. So from like 2010,
Mm-hmm.
they were saying, listen, they're working on a cure. They are working on a cure. They're going to get it. It's just a matter of time. Science has to get caught up. They have to go through the procedures, but they're working on it. They're going to get it.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're very much involved with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, who funded all that research. So she goes, it came in. This is the one. And I had done tests on prior drugs before that didn't work out. And it was a big letdown at the time.
Yep.
She goes, come in on Monday. She goes, I got you on compassionate release. Even though it's not FDA approved yet, I got you on release. Because you had to take care of yourself for all these years.
Of course.
To make sure that because it's a degenerative disease. So
yes.
Once they give you the medication, it'll set the floor.
Yep.
You'll get a little bit better. But if you're down in the dumps, it's only going to, the improvement's only going to be so much. And of course, this is a layman's paraphrasing of it.
Yep.
So I had worked hard all those years to keep myself in good physical shape so that when it did come out, I could get the most of it. So she says, the drug came in, Tommy. Come in on Monday. And we're going to get you started on it. So I'm like, what is going on today? I looked up at the sky. I'm like, this is the best day ever.
Wow. Divine intervention.
Now, yeah, so I don't know if you guys know him, but Boomer Esiason was a quarterback for the New York Jets, Cincinnati Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Big professional athlete. He has a sports talk show nowadays, and his son has cystic fibrosis. And
Right.
Boomer was the guy who really brought visibility to cystic fibrosis because fundamentally what it is, it's a disease that impacts children. It's like a childhood disease, people refer to it as. So it's a childhood disease. So his son had it, so he brought a lot of publicity to it. And I had never met him. He had done all these things. He'd raised all these funds, everything like that, and just never met him.
Right.
So we're playing golf, and some guys, are hitting up against us. So my client's like not getting happy about that. So they pull up behind us, and this guy gets out of the cart, and he's like, "Hey man, do you mind if we play through?" And we're like, "Sure, no problem." He goes, "Hi, I'm Boomer," and introduced himself. It was Boomer Esiason. I had never met that man in 31 and
Something years.
365 days. I met him that day, the day I found out my wife had a viable pregnancy, and the day I found out that I was getting the drug that would, effectively cure my cystic fibrosis.
Oh, that's incredible.
And since then I took the drug. It's ongoing thing. You take 2 pills in the morning, 1 at night,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
that's it. It's like it was like somebody turned the air on. It
What
was
a
that drastic
story.
of a change.
It really. Oh, look,
So,
and I tell you what, you're looking great. I know it's not an external thing, but I think it matters. Everything matters, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
if you look at pictures of me from that day, it was like I was thin, but my face was bloated.
yep, yep.
Right, you could just tell
You
there's
went right.
subtle signs where you could tell someone's just not feeling well,
Yep, yeah, you can just
and,
tell.
you could tell when you look at those
That's a
pictures.
great story. I love that. Thank you so very much. Now, it's an interesting segue, I guess, into how it was that you got involved in law in all of this. I'd love to know that story.
So it's another way back. So I grew up in Queens.
Yep,
I went to high school at St. Francis Prep, and I loved it. I loved high school. I had a lot of fun with my friends. I went to class when I wanted, and that was kinda it. I was always kind of a student that could show up on the test day and do all right, even if I had
didn't matter.
done nothing to prepare for it.
Yep,
And when I left high school, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to be, so I carried that mentality into college, where there was really no goal or desire. It was just show up because this is what you're supposed to be doing,
of course.
and that was it. And my the first college I went to was St. Francis College, and I started off fine the first semester, like maybe it was a 3 something GPA, but the second semester it dropped down to sub 2.4, something
Oh,
like
wow.
that.
Yep,
And I didn't even sign up for classes the next year. And then so my mother made me sign up for another college that I didn't want to go to in Queens. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Animal House, but my
oh,
GPA, I was like
yes.
one of the members of
Animal
Animal
House.
House.
Wow.
Yeah, my GPA was sub 2, was like 1.5, and I just didn't care.
Yeah, didn't care.
Just didn't care. I didn't have anything to chase after. So my I came home one day and my mother was there, and she was like, "Your report card came in the mail." I was like, "Oh, what did it say?" What did it say? Like playing dumb. And she goes, "You're turning into a bum."
oh,
Said it just like that. I still hear her saying it. And I'm a person type of person. If you push me
yeah,
that way, or if you challenge me, like you're gonna get a real
the
response.
fangs.
Yeah, and I didn't say anything to her. I said, okay. And on the way to school the next day, I remember exactly where I was. I was stopped at a red light, and I said, okay, what's the opposite of a bum? The first word that came to my mind was lawyer.
And that's how it came
And after
about.
that, I went to my guidance counselor. I said, what do I need to do to become a lawyer? He said, you got to get your GPA up and you have to start taking pre-law classes. I said, how high does my GPA have to be to get into law school? He goes, at least 3.5. I said, okay.
Done.
2 semesters later, I think my GPA was like 3.9, something like that, 3.95. I
Yep.
transferred to a better school, had a better pre-law program. And I took the LSAT, which is the barrier to entry into law school in the United States,
Yep.
and did well on that. Got a scholarship to St. John's, and the rest is history.
Onto the bar you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
exactly.
it. I absolutely love it. Can you recall your first case? Was it daunting?
No, it wasn't. The first law job was daunting. because you don't know anything, right?
Right.
You have there's such a the law is such a massive field of study, just like medicine. You could know one niche area backwards and forwards. The moment you step outside of that lane, you're back to your first year of
Square
law
one.
school. You don't
Yeah.
know anything. So I don't remember my first case, but after I became a lawyer, but that's because my mentor who I worked for during law school was a very hands-on guy and he expected a very, very high quality work product and he made you a part of it. So he wasn't like, Tommy, go make copies. He was like, this is the issue and this is why it's the issue.
Yeah.
Do all the research you can to figure out how we counteract that issue and come back. And if I went back to him and I wasn't prepared to have a dialogue about it where he would raise issues and I knew how to respond to them, that was a problem. I didn't do my job in his
No.
eyes. So at that point in time, I was already adopting cases like they were my own, even though he was the attorney of file, of course, and he was the one managing them. He he didn't allow you to feel like, don't worry, if you mess this up, someone else will take care of it. You have to kind of act like you're the last man standing.
Yep. The
And
buck
if
stops
everyone
with
acts
you.
that way, the client is better served,
Mm.
right? So everyone has to act like there's no one left to hand the buck to. So by the time I became a lawyer, that was 2 years in, I was already acting that way in, mentally. So by the time I got a case that was, "Here, handle this from beginning to end," after I had been admitted, I don't even recall the case because it was
Just one of many.
yeah,
Yes, one of
exactly.
many, and that's a real credit to you. You know, if you're doing all the work and you got your GPA up and you did everything, that's a really inspirational story for anybody who's in those spots right now, going, I don't see a way forward. So that's a massive takeaway for anybody who's on the show today, and I really do appreciate you sharing. Now, ignorance isn't bliss when it comes to any field of law. So how is it that you stay abreast, given the a number of different types of law that you work with? And what's the process for staying up to date and current with your knowledge?
So there are a couple of things you can do. One, if you're the one is staying involved in your bar, right?
Yeah.
So, and by bar I mean the field that you do.
Yep.
Speak to your colleagues, be involved with
Ah.
them,
Yep.
go to dinner with them, have drinks with them, play golf with them. They're gonna just discuss the way anybody would their issues, what problems they're confronting, and you're gonna learn through that. You're gonna be up to date with that. The other way is to just so for like legal research purposes, there's LexisNexis that we use.
Of course. Yes.
If you type in certain search terms into that database and say, send me every new published decision that comes out with those search terms, you'll see the update for cases that you don't have, right? That you're not involved in, but you're seeing how the case law is developing from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The other way is to take CLEs, but my favorite way is to just be involved in the community.
Yeah.
When you get confronted with a case, different issues, no matter how well I know the law and the facts, I'm typing in to see recent case updates. Has there been any change to this? Even if it's a slightly different interpretation to a statute that could assist a client in their case, I'm going to read it, but it's because I enjoy it.
Yes. Of course.
If you don't enjoy it, that, being a nerd that way is not going to happen, right? You have to kind of like it and be intrigued by it in the first instance. And that's what kind of keeps you abreast with the cutting edge developments.
See, what I find interesting about law, being having been in regulations, acts, regulations, codes, and standards for the majority of my own life, I always find it interesting how two sets of human beings who have to interpret the same piece of legislation can come to completely different outcomes based on the arguments they have in the data that they believe is right and wrong. How is it that from your personal perspective, what's your view on that sort of thing? That need for interpretation. It really turns into quite a bit of a battlefield sometimes.
Yeah, it's an imperfect system,
Mm,
the legal system, um, especially common law jurisdictions like the United States, Australia,
mm,
the UK. and we all get everything from Britain, right?
Yep.
Great Britain back in the day. So, and all of that is based off of statute that then is interpreted by the courts, and that sets precedent. And then we are either bound by that precedent, or there's some wiggle room on it, or we can argue for a new interpretation of the statute.
Hmm.
The problem is people are fallible and people draft those statutes.
Yep.
And if you use grammar incorrectly, you're going to lead to the bankruptcy code in the United States is a prime example of that.
Yep.
Everyone says that the amendments in 2005, Congress was under a deadline to get it done. And there's,
It's not.
a section called the hanging paragraph, because it's in a section of the bankruptcy code. You have enumerated paragraph, and then this thing that has no enumeration.
Nothing.
And it's like, is that a subparagraph,
What
or
is
is it a
that?
new section? Right? How do you interpret it in the grand scheme of things? And that caused like a whole host of litigation just over that issue, which is really, what is that? It's a typo,
Yeah.
right? But uh,
And the case implications can be incredible, can't they?
huge, huge. And we see that all the time. We get decisions from courts that are sloppily written,
Mm.
or they were not reviewed before they went out for publication, and they get the parties' names wrong,
Yep. Yep.
assert the wrong facts, right? It's just, the problem is it's a system run by people, and people are fallible,
Oh yeah.
right? No matter how much you prepare, it doesn't even have to be lack of preparation. No matter how much you prepare and do, you're still going to make mistakes. And
Yes.
it's going to impact this system that we've constructed that tries to apply justice to the populace in a way that the populace feels like they have a remedy
Mm.
to
Mm.
address their issues.
Yeah.
Because if you don't feel that, if you don't feel like you could go to the court system to resolve issues, people take matters in their own
Becomes
hands.
anarchy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you can't have that either.
Oh no. No.
So it's tough to be in that field sometimes, especially in 2023. There was a
Mhm.
lot of volatility.
Yep.
Um, Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, and I'm not even commenting on the political implications or the ideologies. It's just the fact that that was the good law on the books for 4 decades,
Mm.
5 decades,
Yep.
and now it's not.
No.
How
Interesting.
how do you address that from an attorney perspective, advising your clients?
Yep. Things
There's
change.
another thing. Same thing in New York State. There was this law called the Foreclosure Abuse Prevention Act that was signed by the governor December 30, 2022, and it impacted how the statute of limitations regarding mortgage foreclosures in New York State are computed. And at the time, we had a larger practice with representing the foreclosing banks. So before it became law, about 7 months before, we were telling clients this law is coming. It's going to pass the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate. It's going to be signed by the governor, and it's going to have drastic implications on your portfolio. You need to take corrective action now. We told them this 7 months ago. Thankfully, all of our clients listened to us, and they did so, right? They got out of the files that they could.
Mhm.
But I can't tell you the stress that I felt during that time,
I can
because
imagine.
it's almost impossible to not assign some blame to yourself, right? I should have seen this coming. I should have been better prepared for some sort of volatility like this. But in hindsight, that was ridiculous. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
what were you supposed to
what
do?
were you supposed to do? And I also think, also, Thomas, if I may say, you also obviously have a lot of successful cases, and it must make you feel great when you're actually helping other people improve their situation. How does it make you feel?
It always feels good
Mm.
when you won a case or won a motion. I found that feeling, though, is kind of fleeting.
Yes.
It'll last maybe 30 seconds where it's like, oh, awesome, right?
Yep.
I feel a more lasting positive feeling when the work is like purpose driven,
Yep.
right? It's a part of a larger purpose,
Yep.
right? So if you're saving someone's home through the bankruptcy process, or you're resolving their debts after they've had really difficult personal issues or medical issues, and you're resolving this legal issue, which was like
Bugging them.
just
Yep.
a monkey on their back,
Mm-hmm.
and you fix all those things for them, that feeling of that good feeling lasts longer because it's
Yep.
a part of this larger purpose.
Yeah, that's great feedback. There's so many different dimensions we could touch on here. I'm wondering, let's talk about your firm, Frank Law. What are the main service groups that areas of law that you service?
So we typically do bankruptcy, commercial litigation, and real estate.
Right.
And as a part of, real estate, foreclosure falls under that as well. But those are the
The
principal
primary.
areas. My partner handles the real estate transaction side of things.
Is that
And
Amanda?
that's Amanda, correct? Yeah.
Fantastic. I've done my research. Yeah, now tell us a little bit about Amanda. So she's highly active in the group, obviously.
Yeah. So Amanda's my partner.
Mm.
We met at St. John's.
Yep.
She was a former ADA in Miami, which is why we lived in Miami for a little bit.
Mm.
And so, I mean, she's tried more jury trials in her first 3 years of her career than most attorneys will do in their entire career. So tough as nails. And then when we moved back to New York, we started doing, we started the firm in 2018, and she transitioned more to real estate then just because we knew we were starting a family.
Yep.
She can't take that 2 a.m. call, bail, come bail me out of jail anymore.
Now I can
So,
understand.
and it's easier, the civil side of things is a lot less stress because you're not dealing with people's civil liberties.
Of course, of course.
So the burden is not quite the same.
Yep.
But she helps manage the firm. She has an excellent business mind. It's like something I didn't have innately that she just does.
Complimentary.
So it was, we couldn't do it without her.
Yeah, that's fantastic feedback. There is so much that we have learnt about not only you, but your firm and your partner. Everything seems to be going so wonderfully well for you. Now, I'm pretty sure, Thomas, that there are going to be some people who are looking to connect with you. They may have some issues that they're looking to deal with. And where would they go to find you? Where is your website and what would they find there?
Yeah, they could find us on our website, frankfirmpc.com. They could find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And yeah, we have 24/7 emergency services, which just happens in the foreclosure bankruptcy space.
Yep.
People have foreclosure sales or some other enforcement, so you have to be available
Mm-hmm.
to address those issues. And yeah, you could find us there.
Fantastic. Well, look, if you're on this call today and you've heard Thomas and I speaking about all aspects of law, there's certainly a lot more that you need to possibly learn. And if you wanted to reach out, the link to Frank Law will be below this post. No matter where you find it, you're going to find access to Frank and Amanda. And with all that being, Thomas, should I say, with all that being said, Thomas, this has been an absolutely great call. I've really, really enjoyed it. Love talking about you and your business. Thanks very much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Rick.